we will talk about the game last night, but I do want to pose this question to fellow Sixer fans to start off this video. I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel as bad, and this is also going to sound pathetic because we still haven't reached a conference finals in the Embiid era, but I feel better after this exit than compared to, say, Game 7 of Boston last year, where the entire team, including Embiid and James Harden, did not show up. Game 6 against Miami, where it was the same thing, and the ball didn't come back to me, and Embiid fading in the fourth quarter and all that in the second half. And then Game 7 against the Hawks in 2021. I just feel better about this loss last night because, one, the series was crazy. The total point differential in Knicks Sixers was Knicks 650 to Sixers 649. Just close battles throughout this entire series. Classic games. Just straight up one of the best first-round series I have seen. One of the best playoff series I've seen. That was not a first-round playoff series. That was a second-round series. That could have been an Eastern Conference Finals. Like, this was some high-level basketball. For all the antics and the sniping back and forth between fan bases and the bitching about foul grifting from, Knicks fans talking about Embiid and then Sixers talking about Jaylen Brunson. And I think we can all agree that Tyrese Maxey had a shitty whistle in all of this, but that's beside the point. It was a great series. The Knicks deserved to win. They were the tougher team. They made tougher plays when it was time to make tougher plays. Offensive rebounds, or trying to get an offensive rebound and then knocking it off of a Sixer out of bounds to get one extra possession. Deuce McBride felt like he just couldn't miss in this series. But I do feel like this was a loss that at least left me more optimistic for the future, probably for the first time since 2019. Because Tobias Harris is off the books finally, and what a final game at the Wells Fargo Center for Tobias Harris to have. And honestly, if you're just comparing yesterday's game to the first 4 games of this series, I didn't think, well, maybe it was bad then, because I really didn't notice Tobias through a lot of this game once again. I knew that he had 0 points. I obviously, I'm keeping track of him because anything he could have given would have helped the Sixers, but 0 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists in 29 minutes. The Tobias Harris experience in one snapshot. But it was very clear in this game that the Knicks were not going to let Tyrese Maxey score 30. They were doubling him. They were sagging off of Oubre. They were sagging off of Kyle Lowry. They were sagging off of Tobias Harris. And every dribble handoff or pick and roll action that involved Embiid and Maxey, the Knicks just absolutely sold out to stop that. And then Nick Nurse, I thought, did a really good thing. He reinserted Buddy Hield. And that first Buddy Hield possession where it was a turnover that led to a fast break layup, it was like, oh shit, here we go. But then Buddy Hield made the Knicks pay for the rest of the game with his shooting. He made the Knicks pay for doubling off of him because Embiid would get the ball on the block, then it would be a double, then it would be a swing, and Buddy Hield was in the corners all game for 3. So just chess match pieces back and forth. And it was if you're a neutral basketball fan, it was a fun series, but obviously as a Sixer fan, it sucks to lose a close series like this because if you win a war like this, the other fan base has to be feeling good. By the way, also shout out to Jaylen Brunson because really been one of my favorite players to watch, except for this series, obviously. Just an incredible, one of the best free agent signings in Knicks history. One of the more colossal fuck-ups in Dallas Mavericks history. They could have had Jaylen Brunson for 4 years, $51 million, but didn't want to give him that extension. But he was just killing the Sixers for the rest of this series. After the first 2 games where he started out slow, the last 4 games, Brunson was averaging 42 and 10 on 59 true shooting. Big shots everywhere, just killing switches, killing the primary defender, killing the drop coverage, and then, doing the Trae Young stuff where he gets you in jail on his backside and then rises up and it's going to be a foul. And I know Sixer fans are pissed at that. And I was annoyed at some of those calls because I thought some of those calls were no calls or were Oubre, like on that and one where Brunson took the lead. I didn't think Oubre touched him. I thought it was more Jaylen Brunson moved his head back and hit Oubre. But Stars are going to get those calls. And that wasn't the reason why the Knicks won this game. The Knicks won this game because they also had 20 offensive rebounds. And if the Sixers cut that by like 5, they probably win this game. There were just too many offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter where it was a tie game or the Sixers were down by 3 points, 1 possession, and they get a stop. But then the ball takes a weird bounce or Josh Hart jumps to the heavens to get the offensive rebound. Mitchell Robinson with his long arms just batting everything on the backboard so another Knick can get the rebound. Just on the margins, the Knicks role players were just a little bit tougher than the 76ers in this series. I thought Joel Embiid had a very good series given the circumstances. The best series of his playoff career, unfortunately. But he did have some rough moments, had some rough fourth quarters, but regardless, when the guy is off the court, the Sixers can't operate like a functional team, and I think that was also the story of this series. The non-Embiid minutes and the offensive rebounding, the smart plays by Thibodeau to get Jaylen Brunson some strategic rest in not only the fourth quarter yesterday, but the fourth quarter in Game 5 to give Brunson a little bit more juice. And also really calculated because those times he took Brunson out for calculated rest, Embiid and Maxey were on the floor, and the Knicks were able to hold serve. Just the little stuff on the margins that can determine a series, the Knicks were able to come out on top. Now, why am I more optimistic after this loss or after this season compared to the last 3 years, basically since the season, the 2020-21 season where Joel Embiid took another leap to be an MVP caliber player? And the reason I'm feeling more optimistic about this is because I felt like this season, especially early on when everybody was healthy, I feel like we got the proof of concept that I have been wanting with the Joel Embiid-led team, basically since I started this channel way back in 2018, sorry. But when you surround Embiid with athletes, with wings, and guards who will shoot a basketball with a good coach, the proof of concept is there. And it is unfortunate that it finally happened when Joel Embiid had his age 30 season. Just unfortunate. The consequences of having 4 GMs in your career and those GMs burned down all the assets that Sam Hinkie left behind, which really put a bind in team building. Then you have guys like Elton Brand giving Tobias Harris and Al Horford big contracts, letting Jimmy Butler go. Just a bunch of mistakes. But now it just feels like at least we have to capitalize on the next 3 to 4 years because that's how much time I think Embiid has left. I think I'm being generous when I say 4, but I think it's max 3 more years left of just true elite play from Embiid when he's on the court. You really have to capitalize on your plans this summer, talking about Daryl Morey. You have a bunch of draft picks now. That albatross of a contract is finally off your books and is no longer a $40 million sinkhole. You finally have a dynamic co-star guard to pair next to an all-time great big man, which has been my point on this channel forever. This isn't revisionist history or excuse making or whatever. I have bitched about these things for years. There is record of me talking about my gripes with the team building of the 76ers post Sam Hinkie and how much I hated Brian Colangelo, for the record. And now Daryl Morey finally has his coach. He finally has a dynamic co-star in Tyrese Maxey, and he is on the path. I don't know if he's going to be a true superstar, but I'm not going to doubt him anymore. His work speaks for itself. His outlier improvement every year spoke for itself. And in these playoffs, he didn't play well yesterday. but I do know he had a fantastic series. If I had told Sixer fans before the season started that Tyrese Maxey would be averaging 30, 7, and 5 on 40% shooting from 3, 48% from the field in his first playoff run as the true lead guard ball handler, you would take that. So now it's up to Daryl Morey with $65 million in cap space, and unfortunately for Paul Reed, though he did bounce back after his second and third stints yesterday, I think it might be over for Paul Reed too, because now his contract's non-guaranteed because the Sixers didn't make it out the first round. So it may be a blessing in disguise if you're looking at it that way for Daryl Morey. I love Paul Reed. He does a lot of really good things hustle-wise and all that stuff, but I just don't know if $8 million is going to be something that you can stomach financially. So now you can build a real team around Embiid and Maxey. Hopefully a team that can have some continuity for these next 2 to 3 years, because one of the drawbacks of having multiple GMs and burning a bunch of assets and fucking up on trades and draft picks and all that stuff is that when you pivot, you're basically going to have to pivot every season and you have a new team every year, which unfortunately there has really been no continuity in the Embiid era. So this is the chance to really put together a team that can, build some chemistry and all that stuff. And now you have two pillars of your franchise that have great chemistry together. And this is the first time in a long time, basically since the rookie year of Ben Simmons, where I felt great about I don't even know about rising duo anymore because Embiid is 30, but we do have a great duo that we can build off of. So I feel optimistic about that. It sucks that we have to wait another year. Embiid doesn't have many playoff runs left, I don't think. There's either one of two ways I think, mid-30s Embiid is going to look. It's going to be like the Hakeem Olajuwon, where he just falls off a cliff after his age 32 or 33 season, I think it was. Or because he's such a good jump shooter, he can kind of, prolong however many years he has left and, be more of a primary jump shooter. I do think also Embiid might need to lose 15 pounds just to maintain his body as he gets older, because I think, the days of him being, this quick 280-pound wing and all that stuff, that's nice when you're 27, 28, 29, but carrying that weight when you're 30, 31, 32, you're just going to have to change your game a little bit. But I do think the Sixers have a chance to really put together a nice team, because we had proof of concept this year. Think of all the minimum guys and the guys we got in the Harden deal and all that stuff. Just the outline of Embiid with a point guard who could shoot and a bunch of wings. The proof of concept was there. It worked. Now we can actually sign real players and real role players. I do hope we bring Kelly Oubre back. I do hope we bring Nick Batum back. Wouldn't mind Kyle Lowry either, but more as a depth piece than a starter, because as a starter, as the series wore on, Kyle Lowry was just ineffective and too small for a Knicks team that was rebounding everything in their sight. But now we have proof of concept. As for the Knicks, just a fantastic team that's well built together and fits the identity of their coach. And one of the reasons this series was obviously important was to advance, but now you get to advance against the Indiana Pacers, who I think the Pacers had the perfect opponent to play against for your first time starting the Tyrese Halliburton era. An old Milwaukee team that didn't have their stars that you matched up well with in the regular season. But I think this Knicks team is going to grind them into dust. Especially because Tyrese Halliburton hasn't even been the best player on his own team in these playoffs. And I don't think that's controversial to say. If not, we're just watching different things. And I love Tyrese Halliburton. But he just hasn't been the same since his hamstring injury. And the Knicks have all these options to throw at the Pacers. They could switch. They could go big. They could go small. The Pacers don't necessarily have a Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey type that could just break your defense no matter what, especially with the way Halliburton has looked. Siakam has looked great, well, for the first 2 games of the Bucks series, but you can load up on him. You could put OG on him, and those matchups have... we should go back and look at some of those Knicks Pacers games in the regular season. I'll just say that, because OG is a perfect option to throw on Siakam. Will Miles Turner hold up on the glass versus Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson? The Pacers have absolutely nobody that can stop Jaylen Brunson. Knicks in 5.